And we are again live streaming from different parts of the world. A very illustrious panel this morning, which I introduced real quick, and then we get into it. One thing this is new today is that we actually also ask you for your contribution and that you will be part of the discussion. So we have prepared a Menti challenge, and if I can see the slide, then I can invite you already while we do the introduction to share actually where you are from. So there will be, if you can use the screenshot if you like, or type in menti.com and use the code, which is here on the slide. We will ask you, where in the world are you dialing from this morning? This morning in Hamburg, which is actually an afternoon in Bali, where Tomas Diez is right now. He is the director of the Fab Lab Barcelona. He's a professor and academic at the Institute of Architecture in Barcelona, but also he spends his life between Barcelona and Bali. Then we go over to Ieva up in the north. She is dialing in from Oslo, and Ieva is the CEO of Material Mapper, an award-winning CEO and award-winning startup in the architecture and building space. And we go zoom back to closer to home to Berlin, where Martin is hailing from, right from his studio in creative space. And Martin is a futurist and head of the Future Hub at SAP. And I'm really excited because we have today a panel on sustainable innovation, and we have the perspectives of startup, academia, as well as science, as well as corporate world. So if while you maybe play and put your location in, we will see and start up the discussion. So I want to start with Ieva and basically maybe just frame the discussion and saying how if we look at the space right now where we are combining the SDGs, we're in between the UN climate change, or the UN General Assembly, as well as the COP climate conference, which will happen in a month from now. This is an interesting space where the big guns talk about big policies and long-term change, where long-term means basically that we have another decade, just another decade, not even, to solve most of the biggest challenges. But I like to see and hear about your perspective if you introduce yourself in the work at Material Mapper, because this is something really tangible and really hands-on what you do today already in this space. So welcome, Ieva. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Harald. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you futurists. Yeah, my name is Ieva. I am currently the CEO and founder of Material Mapper, trying to make construction more sustainable, more circular. I am a Latvian-born global citizen, currently in my country, home country number 6, which is Norway, dialing in from Oslo. And when it comes to sustainability and architecture and the building space, I guess I've always been a little bit obsessed by historical buildings, thanks to my mother, who is actually doing architectural investigation. She holds a PhD, she's writing books, she's basically going on treasure hunts on a daily basis, trying to understand what each building consists of. Looking for wall paintings, ceiling paintings, and so on. And as a kid, I was lucky enough to join her on those treasure hunts. And sadly, oftentimes after our investigation, when we found amazing things in buildings, those buildings were basically demolished or left there to fall apart and rot. And needless to say, none of the amazing materials and interior fixtures that could have been reused were reused. And that is unfortunately still the situation today. 40% of all global landfills come from construction. So that is insane. Like almost half of all the world's trash comes from construction. So I kind of wanted to dig into this and understand why is that happening and why do we talk about those things, but we don't hands-on really act on those things. And that is the reason why I founded Material Mapper, which is a data platform that basically allows you to find construction sites, whether it's a building that will be demolished, renovated, or a new building within a certain location. So we're mapping out, currently we're in Norway, we're mapping out Norway city by city to give you an overview of up to 5 years in the future of all construction work that is happening. So we're trying to facilitate the material reuse in this way, like giving you data and information about what happens where. Because the problem is that there are marketplaces already existing that are trying to solve the issue in construction, trying to buy and sell used materials. However, they are having a trouble scaling because they don't possess this information. So we are kind of the first database of the sort that is trying to pull out the data from different governmental databases and corporate databases to kind of get this overview and the big picture. And what is great in terms of legislation, which is the one thing that can really steer the way we look at construction and material reuse, is that the EU has already reacted. Last year, they issued the Green Deal, stating that 70% by weight of all construction materials have to be repurposed. And why we are here today in Norway and starting from this great country is that, well, Scandinavian countries have always been at the forefront of the sustainability movement. And Norway is introducing more and more actual tangible rules to make the big construction companies that have always been focusing on profit rather than anything else start thinking in a sustainable way and act in a circular way. So that, I guess, in short, is where we stand and how we're trying to make this world a better place, hands-on, not just discussion.
Hands-on, make your hands dirty, literally, probably. I also want to introduce Mila from our team, our editor-in-chief, and she will always chime in to either help me with the timing with the chats, as well as the Menti charts. So, Mila, do we have already, let's say, a map that we can show, or just at the beginning already?
Good morning. I think Marie, can you share the screen? And let's see if anyone jumped on.
All right, we're still a little bit European-centric, but we have somebody from Canada. Oh, hello, good morning, and good night to you. I don't know, that's a different time zone, that's cool. And it looks like we are somewhere in the bubble there between Paris, Copenhagen, Hamburg, London. Okay. Good. Let's move on. Thank you so much. And by the way, you can please write your questions to the panel in your chat. So either you're on Vimeo, you're on Facebook, or you're on LinkedIn. The team behind the scenes, Luciana, Roman, Marie, Celerashita, they're all watching, and then we will gather your questions also in the different chat sessions, and especially in the end, and Mila will chime in. So now to Martin, after let's say a very practical and again hands-on let's say talk from Ieva, which I want to circle back in our panel because it's interesting. Well, I have an interesting question already. Martin, you are maybe from the other spectrum. So you work in a big global tech leader, which was a startup when 30 years ago, maybe. And and you are, interestingly, SAP was once the number 42 on the most innovative companies in the world, right? Was it the 42 or was it the brand value?
It was 42 was the place. Then we jumped up to 24, which is not equally cool. You can hear it, yeah. Yeah, but it's better.
But 42 is a good number. Now that zooms us into the future because 42 and let's say towel is everything we need while we jog around the galaxy. Now your job is you are the futurist of SAP, and let's say if we have history, which was so interesting from Ieva's mom, that she looks at history and buildings. Now you are in charge of the future. So how could Future be also a resource that we bring into the here and now?
Yes, it's a very good question. And I like these big pictures. I usually say, to scare myself, that we live in the history of our own future. We created, and Ieva just gave us an example. She was there with her mom, saw something, and built a different history. However, I think people are a little bit afraid of that. I mean, we usually say from science fiction that, you know, the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed and so on. Favorite quotes for many. And if you listen to that, for me, then it would mean that the future, if it's not distributed, but it's distributable, it's a resource. We can share it, right? And the funny thing, it's renewable resource. And it's planetary, it's global, maybe it's universal, who knows? Because it's about imagination. And we gathered here today, and I'm not trying to be abstract, it is that abstract, that it is a form of imagination, it's a form of hope. Today, we hope that we actually survive on this planet. Planet will be okay without us, that's for sure. But will we humans survive on it? And I would like to ask, yes, maybe we can, but how would we like to distribute this future as a resource? And for me, it's education, for example. It's telling people as a cultural shift that future is a culture. You'd have to walk into it. You have to have communities of the futurism culture. Future is about long-term thinking. We are very afraid about long-term thinking because we are naturally afraid of the other, for example, right? And the other is probably different from what we have today. The future should be different from today, otherwise it's just today all over again. And we are also afraid of the other we. How would I act in this society that is sustainable, that doesn't eat meat, for example, because it's bad, and so on and so on. So it's so many questions. I think people are afraid to distribute that. It's a cultural system. It's complex. You need to find a purpose. You need to network. I mean, it's work, guys. And when you network, you need to empower people instead of compete with them, right? You need to be very transparent. Then you need to experiment about the future. And you need to be very holistic about it. So I think future thinking with the safety, psychological safety, and allowance to imagine desirable futures. And the future methods you need to learn, it's education and safety also to go into and explore. And this long-term thinking rather than, hey, I fixed my KPIs for the next quarters, right? But what does that mean 10 years from now? Why are you relevant 10 years from now? By the way, do you exist 10 years from now? To whom? These questions are scary, but they are there, they are reachable. It's a resource, it can be distributed, and communities, networks, and empowerment. And just discussions like this maybe disarm this long-term scary thing that we walk into and become something else. And from that comes action, like Ieva's actions, comes this emergent, okay, if I can do this, I can do this. So that's my perspective on futures as a resource. It's renewable. We need to start sharing it, educating. It's a culture, future, it's a culture. If that's an answer as any, I don't know.
Martin, this is definitely, let's say, the best cue probably we can have to introduce Tomas and then open up our panel and you know, have a short discussion, because Tomas is in the business of education, and he has been at the forefront of bringing the Fab Lab and 3D printing and the whole you know, innovation in businesses, innovation in let's say production also to universities. And so he has started really groundbreaking work at this amazing studio I could visit in Barcelona once at the Institute of Architecture of Catalonia. And so one of the most interesting things I would love to go and study and hang out with the young people is the Design of Emergent Futures Master. So tell us a little bit about this, but actually, you will have a little bit more time in the, you know, later in the program to chime in. But I think touching upon what Martin just said, how can we bring education in this field? So, is education fast enough, for example, as a start?
No, definitely, and I love the thread that, you know, from Ieva to Martin to landing here in the idea of emerging futures, and also talking about the ways of distributing, I would say, the futures with an S, diverse, no, from different perspectives and diversity. So definitely is something that we keep asking ourselves, and the educational component is something that I think we'd even have to look at without maybe removing some preconceptions that we have about education, first of all, right? As if someone has the knowledge and needs to educate someone else, as the other is the barbarian, right? Like as if we're going to provide you with the things that you don't know, because I am the knowledge administrator. And in the way I believe that we can look at it is creating opportunities to learn, right? I think like the way in which things are moving and you know, in the many fronts, no? In one hand, we have our planetary systems being, you know, changing differently as we use them, as we used to know they change, and that's because of us. And on the other hand, we're introducing like a more complex systems that allow us to perform things in collaboration with machines that we were not able to do before. So I think like creating opportunities for learning, a space for learning, I think is fundamental. And this some of the work that I will spend that about later that we're trying to do with using this distributed network of Fab Labs all around the world on how, you know, this experimentation happens in different settings with different cultures, different contexts, and different meanings of what their future is, their futures are, and learn from it.
Let me maybe stick in here a question, which is, you know, you're actually a poster boy of cross-pollination. So you're born in Venezuela, spent your youth there, spent a lot of time in Europe, and now you're in Asia, in Bali. So how is, you know, being in a specific location part of a learning journey, or did it contribute, or was it not part of how we learn?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have to say that it allows me to make some reflections like, you know, when you are in the South and you are distant from the global North and especially from Europe as the center of knowledge, you feel like the barbarian, and then you want to learn and you want to be in the center of knowledge. And then in some point you say, okay, wait a second, all this knowledge needs to be applied in the periphery back again. And I find exciting kind of, and also very lucky to have that opportunity of in a different setting, being able to create these connections. And that's only possible because the system that, you know, the kind of technology that we're applying now, no, there's like a fundamental level of technology that can set like a basic rules, but then how it unfolds is a big question, and definitely something that again needs to be relearned. It's not like you can come anywhere and say, now you have to use this 3D printer because this is what is the good thing. So I can know why I carve, you know, there are carvers here that they work better than a 3D printer, yeah, right? Yeah. Or, you know, when you go places like Cuba and you teach about them circular economy, it's like, hello, this is like a part of our survival mode. We need to be circular, you know? So it's interesting to look at those perspectives and also create opportunities to learn from each other.
Circular economy, Ieva, that's again your point where Material Mapper chimes in to bring in actually a real active role in the circular economy. And how do you feel, let's say, in this system? So you see the big corporates and also universities who have, you know, sometimes advantage in access to, you know, research, big machines and so on. But where could you as a startup be your part in this system, so to say? How do you feel about your position here?
Yes, thank you, Harald. It's an interesting question that kind of ties into many aspects. One is legislation. The other one is the speed of innovation, which thankfully startups, when you're a small team, you're way more capable of reacting very fast and pivot very, very fast. If you have to react to what is happening in the market, what is coming from the government as a new requirement, that is kind of like the advantage of being a startup and a small team that can be very agile and very fast and like really quickly react without the corporate ladder without the corporate decision-making structure, which normally takes a long time. So that, and the fact that, as I already mentioned, legislation is finally changing. That is a big one, because unfortunately, in this century of incredible consumerism, sustainability has kind of always been forgotten or like pushed away. And obviously, for the big corporates, let's call what it is about making money. It is about making profit. And unless somebody comes to the big corporates and says, hey, you cannot do that anymore, here's a big fine, you have to pay this, like something like what happened with GDPR, right? Nobody really understood what is that, like, what do we have to do now? How does it work? Until some big corporates started getting fined. So that is what I honestly hope is going to happen with construction. We're moving towards that direction. And thanks for this innovation that we are moving towards that direction with the legislation and the government requirements. That gives us an opportunity and a new market to participate in. And the fact that the corporates have a trouble kind of reacting as fast as we can react, that is also our advantage to kind of be the first movers, to be the flag carriers and really make a difference.
I really like what you said in the beginning to this point, that actually there is a policy now that we have to reuse 70% of the materials. So is this already started this year, 2021, or is it starting 22? And how is this affecting everybody around you? So for me, that would be a real good example where policy actually, showing us, well, sorry, this is over now. And similar to maybe, what is it called, FCKW, the gas, we need maybe a more tighter control or policies also for other ways, like climate. But can you tell us a little bit about how policy actually now helped your startup accelerate?
Yeah, absolutely. So this particular Green Deal 70% requirement came into effect last year. So it's already been out there for about a year now. However, there's a lot of things that are still in the gray zone, like it is a requirement. However, it is not very clear how the EU plans to control this on a corporate level. Right now, it is a requirement for all the EU member countries, member states. However, it is like nobody has really said what are the consequences of not being compliant with this. However, like this, I would say, is like the big moving thing, like the big umbrella under which country by country EU member states have issued their own policies and their own rules, which are more specific. Norway is coming up now issuing a requirement for reuse reports. So before you take down a building or before you renovate a building, you will have to have an engineer sent in and actually map out all of the materials within this building and the quality of these materials. So with this detailed report, you can already go, the architects can, take the report and see what exactly they can reuse in what ways. So I would say that EU did a good push in terms of like pushing the countries to start thinking about sustainability and reuse in construction and apply their own internal rules country by country. So it is a great thing that's happening, and I do hope that even more requirements will come into practice, which obviously the corporates are not very happy about, because that does not help them make more profit in the short term. But long-term thinking and future thinking, like Martin already said, future as a resource is something that we have to think about, and we need to make sure that future remains as a resource rather than something we're afraid of.
Very good. We are actually opening up now the Q&A. So if you have a question, please type it in, and Mila will then help if there's a question from all of you. You will let us know if there's a question. So while we are there, Martin, Thomas, how could you contribute to what Ieva says? Do we need tighter rules, and how is, let's say, the market making or future making, future in the making. How do you see this in this particular case? How can we profit from the timing where policy is can play a part?
Maybe I can start. Thank you, Tomas. I'm thinking of ecosystems. First, everybody needs a vision, right? I'm being a futurist. This is my T-shirt. Have a vision, otherwise you're going nowhere, or you don't know where you're going. You don't. So that's the first one. Put it in words. Make us feel it. Make us feel. And I think it's happening with the climate change, for example. It makes me feel, oh shit. To be honest, yeah. So and for example, SAP's vision, big company, a lot of muscle and so on. At the same time, one of the 4 pillars in our innovation vision is ecosystem as a service. Nobody will change this alone. So what Ieva is doing is absolutely outstanding. But Ieva, you just touch on the ecosystem you live in, the legislation and so on and so on. And sometimes I get a little bit upset that there's no politicians in these discussions. And it's a strange phenomenon. This economy, capitalism, that drives us, it gives us all this, but takes away at the same time because politicians and capitalists hang out a lot, right? And now we should hang out with them because it's a bigger ecosystem. And how can we serve it? How can we change it? And I think that's important. This is the empowerment. If these guys, because it's usually guys, don't sit down together, we will omit them, like Ieva is doing. And we will not break laws, but we find new ones. So I think it's time to come together. And I think building these alliances, it's important. I think we're moving in the future from competition to completion. We start to see this in big brands like BMW and Daimler, rivals. All of a sudden they have a car sharing institution. They have electric cars and so on. Never happened before. What do? They realize they are unique. They cannot compete on certain levels because they just not each other. So they can complete each other instead. So the best people don't work for you, but they can work with you. And I encourage everybody, have a vision, inspire by it, be attractive by that education, by the mindset, by the cultural building, be very attractive and inspire people to come to you and build these communities. And I think this completion and this ecosystem you can provide as a service is important. Be very welcoming to not competition, but the otherness, someone else that can contribute. And I think in such a way, we can start to crawl out of this scared mindset to this open mindset into the future, building these cultures. So yeah, of the opposite to instability, because people are, okay, I have my place on the market. And this is the last thing I would say there. I have my place in the market. If I move this and this way, it's scary, it's competition, it's instability. The thing is, the opposite to stability is not instability or chaos, it's emergence and evolution. And if you let people educate you, network, empower you, and experiment with you in big companies like SAP and others, I mean, you are set up for a bigger change. And you know, when we talk environment, it's a big change, including all the other things we have there on SDG maps. I mean, if you have zero hunger, you probably have more time to save this planet and us on it. So contribute to zero hunger. It doesn't have to be the environment specifically, it can be so many other things. Yeah, I can go on forever. The ecosystemic thinking, please.
Oh, very well.
We actually have, we actually have a question that fits into ecosystemic thinking and to the question of big corporates and their sustainability strategies. Stefan asks, which is a topic that came up last time, are there any marketplaces that allow matching between startups looking for collaborations and funding and corporates? So to say a Tinder for startups and corporates, or a method for them to collaborate.
Very quick answer. Just top of mind, Queen of Raw, New York company, owned in family, they made textiles. All of a sudden, the daughter takes over and thinks, no, wait a second, we don't need more textiles. There's textiles everywhere. Yeah, but you had the same idea with constructions. The resource is there, it's not distributed. And she started to count how many billions, kid you not, gallons of water are wasted on jeans making. So no, I can turn it around. So now she has a textile mapper, if you wish. Queen of Raw. And she's connected to SAP. We sponsor her, she sponsors us because we think we are in the same ecosystem.
Very good. So this was already a participation, a very good first half of the tour. And we will continue after a quick break because the topic is architecture of the future and systemic thinking. Thank you, Martin, for the first introduction, Ieva and Tomas. And we have a little bit of, we have a 60-second clip where we talk about architecture of the future. And after this, we also, at this point and in the end, we will chime in with a little bit of a goodie for you participating today. So whoever wants to have a chance to participate in the next masterclass on moonshot thinking, which starts next Monday, here's a goodie for you. So that's a 20% code, which you also will see at the end of the show again. But here's a short break to get us a refill on tea. We see you back in 60 seconds. Thank you. Back with a refresh and some water. So Thomas, we got a good intro already about architecture of the future, and you're quite literally, right into this discussion, and you are basically in an architecture school. And I already talked about the different activities you do, but why don't you share with us your role and the different aspects you do when you're probably one of the protagonists of being an architect of the future, Thomas.
Thank you, Harald. And it's funny, I try to separate myself as much as possible for the tag of architect, being at inside an architecture school. It is related to the fact that the work that I have been had the pleasure to lead all these years at IAG has been related to creating a platform like is FabLab Barcelona to enhance the possibilities of architecture, no? And the way in which we approach architecture, I have to say as well, is quite, it's quite holistic, first of all, and it's also multiscalar. We just don't look at buildings, we look at materials, we look, at the intelligence that can be embedded into what is the inhabitable world, as well as looking at the large scale territorial approach to understand how we live in relationship with resources that, operate on a bioregional level, for instance. No? So this like a multiscalar thinking is fundamental in what we do, both at FabLab Barcelona as well as IAG. And this maybe relates as well on a personal note with the fact that I come from education in urban design. That's what I did in Venezuela. And when I was around 24, 25, I moved to Barcelona, where I had the pleasure to start FabLab Barcelona and then grow a community around it and support also the growth of the FabLab network worldwide. No, being in Barcelona for me was also an opportunity to connect bridges also with Latin America, and thanks to that we opened, for instance, the first FabLab in the region in Peru, in Lima, and then also help to grow as well the FabLab network in Latin America, while at the same time we were also fostering the growth of Fab Labs and the maker movement in Europe, no? So fast forward, all this, I feel like it's interesting because, coming from urban design to the scale of technology, I learned basically how to design a circuit board, program it, and embed it into something, no, that you wanted to do. So you go to this macro scale, to the small scale. Also to play with technology was something I was always been passionate about. But then there was also this necessity to look back at the larger scale and understand how a revolutionary technology such as digital fabrication, as revolutionary as it could be your smartphone or the internet, could potentially change the way we live, no? How we're going to use these principles embedded and the idea of people able to organize themselves around new systems of production, and how that's going to have an impact in our economy. And basically that's why we're looking at the Fab City project, which is also a project in which I am, one of the key members of. We have a collective, a network, and also a foundation based in Estonia, an international team operating in every corner of the world. And all of this, at the same, again, going with this kind of a change of scale goes, to look at the global reach of a community like Fab Labs and how it can have an influence on transforming cities, communities, and regions. And also going back in a setting like Bali and Indonesia to look in a hyper local scale where I am based now. I used to fly once a month for the last 10 years. Now I haven't moved for around 2 kilometers in the last, 6 months, something like that. So it's now looking on how these systems land in a complete new setting, and we're doing this from a meaningful design approach, which is also understanding how design is able to, develop a dialogue with local culture and with the local context. No? So really a lot to learn ahead. That's why I am excited, especially, and kind of reinventing the way in which we are approaching the use of these technologies in new settings. Yeah.
We will dig deeper a little bit, and when we bring Ieva back in, here's now a possibility for all of you also to, besides your questions, that you can still enter in this chat so that we can bring them in the second part of our Q&A at the end. Now, here's another Menti experiment. So we thought we wanted to ask you, what do you see are the biggest challenges? And maybe we can bring in the Menti slide so that we can give you the opportunity to enter your ideas about the challenges. So what are the main challenges to achieving the SDGs? And actually this is becoming a tag cloud while we continue to talk. And if you can enter your words in the app, and then we can also take a look and take a tally of maybe one of these challenges and pick them up in our discussion. So we continue to talk, and we will look at the screen while you can enter some of these introductions. Now, Ieva, so when Thomas talks about architecture. Oh, I have a follow-up question for you, Thomas, because and I said something maybe also wrong about Fab Labs when I said, yeah, it's sort of 3D printing. But when I visited the Fab Lab and the architecture school, obviously we saw how you work with wood and designing on the computers. You said you had the citizen board years back when that was contributing to measuring the quality of the air. But there's also something which I liked a lot, and which was the Green Fab Lab. So which was is in the mountains of Barcelona, and there's it's about regenerative green culture and agriculture and gardening. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because if we think 3D printing, you can only think about plastic being molded or something like that. But there's more to it. So maybe can you take one level deeper?
Sure. I think it's important to see the Institute for Advanced Architecture of Catalonia, IAC, is actually like 3 things in one. I would say it's an architecture school and all the educational programs and that we do. An urban innovation lab that you can say is Fab Lab Barcelona, where we do also research supported by the European Union. And then also a more rural or self-sufficiency lab that is up in the mountains in Collserola. Collserola is a big mountain that is is Barcelona, the Barcelona city is between the sea and a mountain and between two rivers. So that mountain that you see in the hills, that's called Collserola. It's a natural park. And we have an old farmhouse that used to be a monastery a few centuries ago, now turned it into an innovation center trying to innovate in sustainable and self-sufficient architecture. So up there, there are students working on, bringing back wood as one of the raw materials for the production of architecture, building prototypes of buildings, such as, just recently the team did there a greenhouse to create a system of hydroponics, and also like a quarantine cabin that was created last year. So there's a whole exploration there in relationship with the production of architecture with the local natural resources. And as you say, it's part of that approach that I was mentioning before, that, we can go, to design circuit boards, to reconfigure the way in which we produce architecture and experiment with it. But also one of the things that I'm super fascinated about is also the work that we're doing in relationship with materials exploration and understanding, like, in order to have like a true innovation, we need to really reconfigure our material ecology, and I love what Ieva is doing in relationship with the construction sector, because it's, as we said before, is really one of the worst. But really, we are surrounded by petrol-made based materials. No, it's not only the construction, but basically all our life is surrounded by materials that they are not gonna help us to live a few decades ahead in this planet.
Yeah. Ieva, so we talk about materials, we talk about innovation. How did you and luckily your history with your upbringing with your mom helped us guide you into this direction. But do you see other people in your space, and maybe is there collaboration with universities, or are you becoming a teacher? I bet, because when you have either your keynotes or you get your awards, you share your knowledge. How do you see that this is evolving and your place into it?
Yes, thank you, Harald. Yeah, like you said, it all started with my dear mother. It happens to be her birthday today, so thanks, Mom, and happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
And this question really ties together with what Martin said just before he had to go. And he raised a really, really, really important point here, that we have to build ecosystems. We have to see ourselves not as a startup, not as a corporate, or not as a government, but a part of a bigger thing. We have to start looking at ourselves as a part of the puzzle. So I think that this is like the very, very key thing that has to happen. It's about time that we started collaborating versus competing. So in that matter, we are doing exactly that. That is what I understood very, very early on when I studied the market and I looked at what is available, what is out there, and what I found was a lot of friction, because there's a lot of players, like a lot of startups trying to do something. However, they're not scaling. Why are they not scaling? Because A, the requirements from the government are not in place. Therefore, B, corporates don't care because they care about profit. And C, they just don't have access to all the information they need. And that, again, is a problem of the lack of the ecosystem. So that is why Material Mapper was built as a platform to connect all of those players from the government, meaning municipalities. We're talking to the municipalities on a daily basis because we need the data that they have, that oftentimes they don't even know they have because nobody's really looked into it before. And we're talking to the corporates where we're helping them see the bigger picture and be prepared for the existing regulations that they have trouble already meeting and for the future regulations that are about to come. We're kind of trying to tie it all together. Also the startups, because we're not trying to compete with anybody here, because we are the first ones. We're trying to kind of build this infrastructure for material reuse at scale. So we are not a marketplace. Like I always have to stress this out. We are a data source to help marketplaces strive, to solve this friction of a problem that exists in the market because of lack of data and because of the lacking ecosystem, that the governments or municipalities are not sharing their data, the corporates are not sharing their data, they're not communicating between each other. So that's what we're trying to do, build a conversation and a collaboration between innovation, government, and corporates. And of course, also young scientists and innovators in the academia. Obviously, that is also something that we are very much open to. So I would love to see a perfect world where all of these people or all of these communities finally realize that we are in this together. This is our planet and this is our mission. It should be our mission to collaborate in order to reach those sustainability goals, other than just having conventions and writing nice research papers. There is a lot that we can do hands-on, and we have to start acting rather than just reacting.
Great. We saw in the cloud, and what you said is this is an ecosystem, it's a systemic approach, and it's a systemic challenge for all of us, because there was not only one big word which came up, but there was like, 20 different kinds of challenges here. We will open up to the Q&A. So if you have questions, please share them in the chat. And we have already the first 1 or 2 questions. So Mila, you want to pop a question from the audience?
Sure, we have a few. This is a question with an opinion as well. On penalizing corporations, what can we do with the money from any fines, perhaps investing in research into sustainable cements, etc., or other areas where we need to make progress and could have an impact? So the question is, what could we do what could we do with the money from fines if we penalize corporates for lack of ESG?
That's a great one. Wow.
CSR.
Spot on. Well, we can, like, my response to this would be invest that money into cleaning up the mess that is already there. Because this is like, there's a desirable future for all of us that we want to see, but there's already so much damage done. So that money could be invested into cleaning up the environment and facilitating the proper waste management, not just in construction, but generally speaking, proper waste management that is lacking in many parts of the world, from Norway to Germany to Bali. Been to all those places, and there's loads to do in many aspects here.
Well, maybe it's not, it's a new word, and instead of waste management becomes material management.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree. No, it's like it's a famous quote by a famous philosopher of the 21st century called Will.i.am from Black Eyed Peas that says, waste is only waste if you waste it. I don't know if you remember when he was doing this campaign for 3D printing with a soda company. But yeah, I mean, in the relationship with the fines, well, I have to say that I'm not really friendly of this hyper regulation and hyper control in one way. I think like it's more interesting to incentivize and to motivate innovators, people to have opportunities to keep innovating. No, but it's true that achieving, getting to that step, I think that is an intermediate transition. And of course, I pretty much agree that there's so much damage being done already to ecosystems, and I will be happy to see some of the big companies paying some fines. First of all, maybe helping to restructure some of the communities and ecosystems that have been devastated, and usually those are outside Europe and outside where things are consumed. So basically, you know, trying to clean up a little bit another mess, which is the mess of colonization and destructive logics of our current economic model. So I would put some there, which is going to create a positive feedback at the end. No, it's gonna feedback positively towards us, and probably, you know, it will help to create more local opportunities. It's interesting to see also how immigration is seen as a problem, but actually the migration problems, you know, from the south to the north, has been created by the way in which the north has seen the south in the past. So by reinvesting in the south, maybe we can help to solve some of the problems that we think that are our problems, even for the most conservative people that might see those only from a single perspective. But yeah, that's my take on that question.
Thank you, Thomas. Mila, do we have another question?
We have an open question from Nick Jones on LinkedIn. What does 5 years time look like, or what do you think it will look like?
All right, your futuristic view. What does 5 years from now will look like?
I can jump on that just quickly. I think it depends. I probably can say personally, I hope to be doing some farming and learn to farm. This is something I was sharing the other day with Harald and the team, this idea of go back to farming. I was talking the other day with a local farmer that he said I'm a farmer pretending to be an entrepreneur. And I was telling him, well, I am a kind of an entrepreneur trying to pretend that I'm a farmer. So I would love to learn. Maybe we can learn from each other, no? So I think in a way, it will be great for as many of us as possible to go back to farming. I think that's a really interesting approach. And maybe we can embed it even into education in high schools in the next 5 years. But I hope that maybe more as a general and policy, why, more the more bigger framework. I think I'd love to see the SDGs, for instance, moving from being aspirations to having a concrete action plans that are not made in the same way that has been done before. Meaning we have maybe in these 5 time periods, we can figure out how to implement them and not being dictated for others to implement it as some kind of a close committee of experts decided. Because in a way, I think we need to recognize that there is different type of expertises, no? And then I think sometimes local knowledge is one of the ones that is usually forgotten. So maybe that's a couple of takes on the next 5 years.
Ieva, what's your next 5 years, or in 5 years from now? That's a job question.
Very good question. And I have the two sides of this coin. On the not so nice side, the fact is that by statistics, if nothing is done with the way the world works right now, in 5 years, what I already mentioned, more than 40% of landfills that come from construction will basically double in 5 years. If we continue working, creating, building the way we have done it until now. Now, I'm working towards everything that's in my power so that doesn't happen. And I think I believe that a lot of good things will happen in terms of sustainability. Like Thomas already said, I want to see SDGs becoming something tangible rather than something that is being discussed in the rooms, in the hallways of Brussels, and that kind of sounds nice, it seems nice, it's a great aspiration, but I want that aspiration to materialize. And I want to see in 5 years, I want to see this ecosystem really taking off to the level where Brussels, the suits in Brussels sit down at the same table with innovators, with scientists, with startups, and they come up with the plan, with the action plan together. Because you can't just be at this power position and decide for the world and decide what's going to happen or not going to happen in the next year, 5, 10 years, 20 years. We need a collaboration, we need communication, there has to be a conversation. And in order for that to be productive, and turn into actionable plans, we have to collaborate on a very high level. So that's what I see happening. I think it will. I hope it will.
Okay, Mila, is there a last question we can bring in, which is maybe because we already zoomed out next 5 years, is there one maybe where we can have short answers as a closing?
So maybe something very specific. With every technological or with every technical innovation, a gap in regulation becomes visible. Is there an engine which informs proactively a market participant about relevant regulations? So how can a proactive, or how can a market participant find relevant information on current regulations when innovating?
Google.
Well, at Google, you have to go in and search. So is there something where you, Google alert?
I mean, no, that's actually, I think that might be one of the things that, like, there's space for innovation. There's a business idea right there. Build a platform or something that informs you about the specific news or regulations that are coming up in the space that is relevant to you and your business or your startup. Otherwise, oftentimes this is kind of like the gray zone, and even large corporates, like we touched upon those fines here, and like penalizing for not complying with this and that. Oftentimes, even large corporates have no idea what they're not compliant with, and then it's it's kind of a vicious circle of lawyers and and court cases. And it would be great if there was such a service that kind of informed you that this is something you need to look out for. But I don't know if that, I haven't seen anything like that in the market yet. So space for innovation.
I think we have one more quick
Thomas,
question that's more interesting for Thomas.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Mila. I will make a little comment on this previous one, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, what and how do we need to change the education so the future generation will start to see the world in your way, or to see that waste can be a treasure?
Sure, I think I can relate it too. One of the things about regulation is like the main killer of innovation, right? If we start to look at the, I'm sorry to say, like it's that plain. You want to use your time in the exciting part that or in learning, right? And not looking at what some people say that are living in another century about what you are supposed to do. No, so I believe like that's currently the regulatory framework might be broken, no, and always goes behind the technological advancements, and we have seen that is dramatic in relationship with the online platforms and the platform capitalism, and it's basically platforms are making their own regulation. It's that dramatic, and I know this from firsthand. So in order to shift this, I believe and this relates with education as well. Like the approach that we need to take is that we are now in a global mission, basically, in which if our purpose and our energy and our resources, we put them in the direction of generating or regenerating our economies that for many centuries had been, being devastated by just economic growth, I think then, regulation is going to be easier, right? So if you want to regulate people from making money, it's different like you want to regulate people from making common good. So this should be our like a macro political agenda, right? Like let's align, all the educational levels. And here, this is something that I haven't said before in many places, like why kids or students in universities or people doing PhDs, maybe in some of the PhDs, maybe it's more understandable, but why people need to learn in classrooms? Why the real world is not the classroom? Why we are not using that energy, that brain power that is already there? We have kids with new computer capacity. They are better than us. They're able to integrate digital technologies. We need to align them to work directly into the common world problems. We don't need to go into a room and learn how to deal with the world. We need to deal with the world while we are learning. So that's, I think, that should be part of an educational agenda. It should be, let's, as Victor Papanek would say 50 years ago or more, let's design for the real world. And then let's align all of us to be, in that real world, not only designing, but creating alternative models, experimenting with it. And that's the real classroom that I believe can transform our educational system.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Ieva. I feel that the closing words from you basically inspire us that this is a classroom of learning globally from different parts of the world. Thank you, Norway. Thank you, Bali, and obviously the team and in Berlin, Martin. So I think that there might be more questions in the chat. So we will, see if we can ask the speakers to also look at the chat in LinkedIn or so, and maybe add some of the answers there. So we have to wrap up now to be on time. So there's a couple of announcements I want to share because for those of you who waited, and there's a quick of a next milestone. So our next wake-up call will be in November, because in the middle, in the month from now, there's COP26. So there will be something around there. We will see maybe if we can see you online. But the next masterclass on moonshot thinking, again, starts on Monday. There's the last masterclass this year, which also starts on November 8th. And for each of them, this is a 4-week course, which you can learn about moonshot thinking. But our leader in sustainability innovation, we have, I think, the next slide, so that we have, there's also a special promo code for all of you who participated over the weekend until Monday. There's a 50% off if you scan in this code and basically go online and join us there. I think today we saw that sustainability and solving the SDGs comes from innovative people like Ieva and Tomas. Thank you so much for your contributions today. And it comes from the exchange of passionate people like you who will be joining us. And we are delighted to have more than 40 extraordinary speakers in this program and a very active community around this. So I think this is the last slide, if I know. And then we will close up with a short video take again to introduce you to the leader in sustainability. And I say thank you so much, everybody, for participating. Thank you for the panelists. This was really exciting, and we can always dig deeper, but we like to make it concise. And see you soon in this program. Thank you so much. And Marie will roll the tape.
For this decade is out.
Thank you all, and have a